Before sleep, you enter the only moment of the day when you don't need to pretend, control, or prove anything to the world. It's the instant when masks fall, defenses dissolve, and all that remains is what you truly believe about yourself. Most people use this moment in the worst possible way, reliving mistakes, mentally arguing about situations that are already over, repeating worries like a mantra of fear. They don't realize that in these final minutes, they are planting tomorrow. The subconscious doesn't argue, question, or interpret. It simply accepts what you deliver when the conscious mind surrenders to sleep. And that's precisely where the power reveals itself. In the silence before falling asleep, when the barrier between what you imagine and what you experience becomes thinner than ever. If you don't use this moment consciously, it will use you. You will continue waking up within the same circumstances, carrying the same emotions, repeating the same pattern. But when you learn to direct this moment, everything changes. Because before you sleep, you're not just resting, you're ordering your reality to deliver what you want to find when you open your eyes. It's simple, but profound. Your life doesn't respond to the effort of the day. It responds to the state in which you fall asleep. That's why what you do in these minutes is often the real turning point between a repeated life and a created life. Each night is a door, and each door leads to a different state. Today, you will learn how to cross it with intention. Erasing the day isn't just forgetting what happened. It's removing from your consciousness everything that, if taken into sleep, will turn into more of the same tomorrow. It's an act of inner authority, like someone who deliberately decides not to allow the recent past to infiltrate the future that is being created. When you lie down, the natural tendency of the mind is to revisit every detail, the conversation that bothered you, the worry that remained unresolved, the failure that hurt, the doubt that settled in. But all of this belongs to an old state, and if you accept it as true during these final minutes, the subconscious records that state as your starting point. That's why so many people wake up already tired, irritated, anxious, as if they were restarting a cycle that never ends. The mind didn't sleep freely, it slept burdened. Erasing the day is a gradual process. First, recognize that everything that happened from the moment you woke up was just an expression of your previous state, not a definition of your future. This eases resistance because you no longer feel you need to justify anything. Then, start mentally untying the knots that insist on staying. If a thought tries to return, you don't fight it. You simply observe it and let it pass like a leaf being carried by a slow river. The idea is to reach a point where you are no longer reacting to what you experienced. Reaction is repetition. Silence is creation. As you relax, realize that many emotions of the day don't need to be kept. The accumulated frustrations, the subtle fears, the feeling of inadequacy, all of these are temporary states, but the subconscious assumes them as permanent if you sleep within them. So, consciously decide, this is not going with me to sleep. With each breath, release a little more. Release anxiety as if letting go of a weight that doesn't belong in your hands. Release the hurry, because it only exists in wakefulness. Release control, because sleep is precisely the space where creation continues without your conscious effort. Gradually, you will notice that there is a point of neutrality. It's not happiness yet, it's not visualization, it's not manifestation. It's just a clean void, an inner silence. This moment is precious because the subconscious understands this neutrality as fertile ground. It knows that when the day is finally erased, any new state can be planted. This is what differentiates those who create consciously from those who only react. Those who create know how to clear the ground first. And erasing the day doesn't mean denying what happened, but freeing yourself from the obligation to carry everything. It means recognizing that nothing you experience today has power over what you will choose to experience tomorrow. It's looking inward and understanding that sleep is the place where you deliver to the subconscious only what you want to perpetuate. And if what you experience today doesn't align with what you want to experience, it doesn't deserve to accompany you to the pillow. Thus, erasing the day is a discipline of inner detachment. It's the act of saying to yourself, I end this state here. I leave it where it belongs. I don't take it into the night, because the night is sacred. The night is creation. And when you finally reach that silence, you open space for the new. The old dissolves, and the door to the desired state opens. To choose a single state, you need to abandon the idea that manifestation is an accumulation of requests, scattered desires, or loose goals. Before sleep, the consciousness doesn't work with lists. It works with an identity. It doesn't ask what do you want to have, but who are you deciding to be? When you try to assume several states at the same time, prosperous, loved, healed, confident, victorious, you become divided internally, and the subconscious cannot react to a fragmented consciousness. The power is in unity, and unity is born from choice. When you lie down, having already erased the previous day, all that remains is a clean field, ready to receive a single command. This command is not a sentence, it's not a request, it's not a prayer in the begging sense of the term. It's a silent decision. A decision that you feel, not that you formulate. It's like entering a dark room and turning on only one light. All attention turns to it. The rest disappears. It should be the same with the desired state. It becomes the center of your consciousness at that instant. To do this, ask yourself, if I could choose only one thing for my subconscious to work on tonight, what would it be? Don't choose out of desperation, but out of clarity. Choose what, when assumed, will naturally organize all other areas of your life. Often, people want to solve 10 issues at the same time, when, in fact, there is a single state that, if assumed, would dissolve all other difficulties. Prosperity resolves financial insecurities. Self-love resolves unbalanced relationships. Healing resolves emotional and physical limitations. Confidence resolves internal sabotages. After choosing the state, don't describe details, paths, or conditions. Forget the how. Sleep doesn't work with linear logic. The subconscious transforms states into concrete paths without you needing to interfere. Your role is only to choose the essence, the central axis of what you want to be. And this choice must be firm, even if silent. As you close your eyes, let the idea of that state become familiar. Not as a distant goal, but as something intimate, already known to you. Familiarity is one of the strongest signs of subconscious acceptance. If it seems strange, distant, or impossible, keep getting closer to it, not through effort, but through relaxation. The more you relax, the closer the chosen state gets to you, because resistance decreases and acceptance increases. Choosing a single state is like selecting the station of your mind. If you change constantly, everything gets confused. But when you fix the tuning, the message arrives clear, and the subconscious responds with precision. Before sleeping, remember, you're not asking for something external to happen. You are internally assuming what you want to see reflected tomorrow. And the state you choose, if sustained with sincerity, inevitably becomes the state that the world will have to confirm. Each night is an opportunity to define who you will be at dawn, and it all starts with this singular choice. Entering the feeling as if it were real is the point where imagination ceases to be fantasy and becomes creation. It's not about inventing exaggerated scenes, nor about trying to see everything with perfect details. What really moves the subconscious is not the image, but the internal feeling that accompanies that image. When you choose a state, prosperity, healing, love, confidence, you need to feel it from within as something already established, not as something distant that you hope to achieve. The most common mistake is to imagine from the outside, like someone who observes the desired life through the window. This keeps the desire as something separate from you. The subconscious doesn't understand distance, it understands identity. That's why you shouldn't look at the desired state, you should enter it. To begin, realize that the feeling doesn't need to be intense, it needs to be true. If you desire prosperity, instead of trying to visualize money, houses, trips, ask yourself, how does someone prosperous feel right now in the silence of the night? Perhaps it's a feeling of security, of relief, of stability, a looser breath, a quietness that replaces worry. If you desire healing, perhaps the feeling is a soft well-being, a deep relaxation in the body, a lightness that contrasts with the tension you were carrying. If you desire love, Perhaps it's the internal warmth of belonging, a peace that doesn't depend on anyone, the certainty that you are sufficient and valued. The feeling is not created by effort, it is welcomed by surrender. The more you try to force it, the farther it gets. So relax the body, allow the images to come naturally without demanding perfection. Let the mind form small fragments, a simple phrase, a body posture, a look, an environment. And from that, let the corresponding feeling arise. The feeling should start subtly and gradually become natural, not something you are trying to achieve, but something that seems familiar, as if it has been yours for a long time. This is the point where the subconscious begins to accept. What you feel should be experienced as present, not as promise. If the mind tries to push the state into the future, one day, when it happens, when I get it, stop and return to the essence. This is how I feel, now, because this is already mine. The conscious mind may insist on questioning, but the feeling responds with tranquility. Don't argue with thoughts that try to deny. Don't try to convince them. Just return to the feeling, like someone who returns home whenever they get distracted. In this process, breathing is an ally. Inhale slowly, allowing the body to enter the state as if adjusting to a garment that fits. The feeling should become comfortable, almost inevitable, as if it has always belonged to you. When it stabilizes, the subconscious receives the command. It doesn't receive verbal instructions nor complex reasoning. It only receives what you feel as truth, and when that internal truth is established, the external world becomes just the mirror that will come to confirm it. Entering the feeling is the moment when desire ceases to be a desire. It becomes an internal fact, and for the Lord that is enough. Creation begins when the feeling settles, silent, simple and profound, as if you were just remembering something that is already yours by right. Falling asleep within the new state is the decisive point of the whole process. It's the instant when the conscious mind withdraws and the subconscious takes command without resistance. Everything you've done so far, erasing the day, choosing the state, feeling the feeling as real, prepares the ground for this final moment. Because in the second when the body begins to yield to sleep, you stop controlling and start being controlled by the state you sustained. That's exactly why the minutes before falling asleep are so powerful. They determine the mold in which the subconscious will work throughout the night. And the subconscious, unlike the conscious mind, doesn't argue, judge, or question. It just executes. The key here is not to abandon the assumed state. Many people do everything right until they reach this point. They choose, feel, surrender. But when it's time to sleep, they allow old thoughts of worry, fear, or doubt to steal the scene. And what happens? It is that old state that the subconscious receives as a command. That's why so many wake up within the same emotional cycle, because they slept within it. To avoid this, you need to remain firm in the chosen feeling, even if it's soft, even if it's small, even if it seems just a thread of consciousness. You don't need to maintain vivid images, nor intense emotions. The important thing is to maintain the internal quality of the state, just a specific tranquility, a feeling of it's mine, a lightness in the chest, a silent certainty. When intrusive thoughts arise, and they will arise, you don't fight them. Fighting is leaving the state. Instead, you simply return to the feeling. Like someone who, when distracted, returns to supporting the body in a comfortable position. It's a natural return, not forced. A calm return, without hurry. At this moment, the body begins to weigh down. The muscles relax, the breathing deepens, the mind loses clarity. You are entering the border between wakefulness and sleep, and that border is the altar of creation. It is there that the new state, sustained without effort, plunges deep into the subconscious. It is there that the how and the when disappear, because the state becomes an internal fact. And internal facts don't ask permission to express themselves externally. They unfold on their own. Surrender is essential. Don't try to stay conscious. Don't try to control sleep. Don't try to keep the mind awake to remember the process. This only creates tension, and tension moves the state away. Sleep should come naturally, silently, carrying with it the chosen feeling as a last impression. It's like handing a seed to the earth. Your work ends at planting. The earth does the rest. When you fall asleep within the state you chose, even if for a few seconds, the subconscious receives that state as an order. It's not a request, it's not a plea, it's not an attempt, it's a silent declaration. And as the law always responds to what is established internally, the external begins to adjust, sometimes in subtle ways, sometimes in abrupt ways, but always in a way that is faithful to the command you delivered in the instant of surrender. Falling asleep within the state is the moment when you stop desiring and start being. It's the point where creation ceases to be theory and becomes inevitable. And when sleep takes you, the state goes with you. And that's what transforms the night into an ally, and reality into a servant of what you decided to assume. When you understand what happens in those minutes before sleeping, you realize that you have never been asking anything of the universe. You have always been ordering how. Not with words, not with effort, but with the state you are carrying into sleep. From today, this needs to be clear. The world doesn't respond to what you desire during the day, when you are divided, anxious, or reacting to events. It responds to what you accept as truth. When your consciousness surrenders and the subconscious takes control, it's at that instant that your life is shaped. Each night you have the opportunity to end one identity and assume another, to close the cycle of everything you no longer want and inaugurate, in silence, what you want to live. You don't accomplish this by asking, waiting, begging for signs. You accomplish it by choosing a state, feeling it as real, and falling asleep within it as someone who delivers a decree to their own existence. Nothing can resist this process because creation happens from the inside out, and sleep is the door through which everything you assume crosses into the physical world. So, from today, don't deliver worries, frustrations, fears, or old memories to the pillow. Deliver a state. Just one. Deliver it calmly, naturally, with silent conviction. What you feel while falling asleep will inevitably be what you find ahead, sometimes tomorrow, sometimes in a few days, but always in a way that is consistent with what you planted. Stop begging for external changes. Stop waiting for the world to confirm something you haven't yet accepted internally. Take the posture of creator, not of beggar. Before sleeping, silence the old, assume the new, and let sleep seal what you decided. Do this night after night with discipline and confidence, and you will see that reality, slow but obedient, will have to bend before what you sustain in consciousness, because nothing surpasses the state you carry into sleep. It's there that creation begins. It's there that everything changes. The world is a mirror fixed by conviction. Everything you see, feel, and experience is merely the projection of the images you hold within. The mirror has no will of its own. It merely reflects with precision what is before it. Similarly, reality creates nothing new. It merely reflects the content of your being. If you insist on seeing the world as hostile, it will show you enemies. If you believe in scarcity, it will follow you, even amidst riches. But if within you blossoms confidence, peace, and the certainty that everything works in your favor, then the inevitable reflection will be harmony. The world, therefore, is innocent. It is merely the stage where your beliefs take shape. The ignorant person struggles with the mirror. He tries to change the reflection without touching the image. He taps on the glass, complains about what he sees, seeks external solutions, but nothing changes, because the cause remains intact. It's like trying to wipe a dirty face clean by wiping the reflection in the mirror. True awakening begins when you understand that there is nothing to fix externally. Everything that appears in your life is a symbol, a silent warning of where your attention has been resting. Every person who appears is a messenger of your own inner state. Therefore, there are no culprits in the world, only reflections. When man awakens to this principle, he stops reacting and begins to create. He understands that changing a belief is changing the entire universe, and this process requires not effort, but awareness. It is the simple act of observing the reflection and saying, "This is merely what I believed to be true until now." With this perception, energy shifts and the mirror begins to transform. Inner change is the only real revolution. Conviction is the cement that holds the image in the mirror. As long as you believe in an idea, it will remain projected no matter what you do. Therefore, the work of the conscious person is not to fight against the reflection, but to dissolve the belief that generates it. When fear disappears, the situation that represented it dissolves. When the feeling of scarcity ceases, opportunities arise as if they were always there. Life reorganizes from the inside out. Understanding that the world is a mirror is liberating, but it also demands responsibility, because from that moment on, there are no more victims, only unconscious creators who have forgotten their power. Everything that happens, happens through you, not to you. The mirror never judges, never punishes, never errs. It merely reflects. And when you change what you offer it, the inner image, the sustained feeling, the idea of yourself, the reflection changes with divine precision. Then the world becomes an ally, not an adversary. It bows before the clarity of the being who recognizes himself as the cause and ceases to beg for effects. The now is the only point of power. Man lives imprisoned between two ghosts. The past he calls memory, and the future he calls hope. But both are illusions projected by the mind. Creation doesn't happen yesterday or tomorrow. It always happens in this eternal instant you call now. The past is merely the record of states of consciousness already lived. The future is the echo of the beliefs you sustain in this moment. Therefore, changing the now is rewriting the past and redesigning the future. Everything that exists in potential is accessible here in the silence of this instant. The most common error is to think that power lies in waiting. Man says, "One day I will be, one day I will have, one day I will change." But as long as he places power outside the present, he loses it. For time is merely the distance the mind creates between desire and acceptance. The truth is that the moment you feel you already are, is the moment everything begins to move. The universe responds to the vibration of the now, not to the promise of later. If you sustain a desire without feeling now as if you already possess it, you continue to vibrate in absence, and the future never arrives, because consciousness continues to reside in the not yet. The now is the portal through which all realities overlap. In it, all versions of you coexist, waiting for your attention to choose one to live. Every emotion, every thought, and every image accepted as true opens an invisible door. When you align yourself with the feeling of your desired self, even for seconds, you connect with the reality line where that self is already real. And that connection is enough to alter the course of your world. The power of now is not poetic. It is literal. It is the raw energy of creation concentrating in a single point, your present consciousness. Therefore, do not wait. Do not imagine there is anything to achieve, because time is a circle, and everything you seek already exists at some point within it. When you enter the state of "I am now what I desire to be," time bends before this decision. The world begins to react, rearranging itself to reflect the new you. The present is the paintbrush, and feeling is the ink with which you paint the next scenes of your life. Eternity is not in the future. It is hidden in this exact instant, waiting to be recognized. Each time you breathe consciously and feel the power of being, you dissolve the weight of time. And in this state of absolute presence, the impossible becomes natural, because you have returned to the origin, to the point where all realities meet, and where God, who is you in essence, creates with a simple act of consciousness, the now. Imagination is the inner Christ itself, the creative power in action. It is imagination that gives form to the invisible, that makes the intangible tangible, the abstract concrete. Everything man sees, touches, or experiences in the sensory world was born first in the silent workshop of imagination. The house you inhabit, the body you wear, the name you answer to, all were at some point a mental image assumed as real. But humanity forgot this divine origin and came to believe that imagination is just a game, a powerless fantasy. However, he who awakens understands that conscious imagining is the same as creating. For what consciousness imagines and feels as true inevitably manifests in the world. Imagination is the door through which the infinite becomes form. When you imagine something with feeling, you are shaping invisible substance. organizing the forces of the universe to give body to what is already true on another level of existence. You are the creative center of all worlds, and yet you continue to believe that power is outside, in people, governments, circumstances, or luck. This is humanity's great deception, believing that God is distant when he has always been the very faculty of imagining and feeling. When Neville said imagination creates reality, he wasn't speaking in metaphors. He was describing an exact law. The Christ is not a distant figure in time, but the eternal principle of creation within every person. He is the consciousness that says, I am. When you affirm something from that state, the entire universe bows to confirm it. The I am is the seed of manifestation, and imagination is the field where it blossoms. Everything you sustain with conviction in this fertile ground will sooner or later be revealed to your senses. There is no exception. Those who understand this truth stop seeking proof and begin creating experiences. They know they don't need to beg, just to remember. For to imagine is to remember what already exists. What you vividly imagine and feel as real is already being gestated in the invisible. The time that separates the image from form is merely the density of your doubt. When faith replaces uncertainty, the interval disappears. It all begins with a moment of clarity, a moment when man, tired of repeating the same cycles, perceives something subtle, almost invisible. The world is not the cause, it is the effect. The reality he so fears, pursues, or tries to control is merely the shadow cast by an inner state. It is in this silent, intimate, and profound instant that the veil begins to fall. The human mind, accustomed to looking outward for answers, finally turns inward and there finds the true center of creative power. If you understand this, you understand everything. For the secret of all manifestation, of every miracle, lies in understanding that you are the cause and not the effect, the observer and the creator simultaneously. The external world is an old photograph of your consciousness. Every event, every face, every circumstance is the echo of a state already lived, of a feeling already accepted as real at some point in inner time. Just as sunlight reveals the image latent in a film's negative, life merely reveals what was hidden in your imagination. When you try to change the world, it's like trying to change the photograph without touching the negative. The image may seem static, but the cause remains active within you. Therefore, whoever tries to improve life without first changing themselves merely rearranges the shadows without altering the light that projects them. Jumping between parallel realities is not a supernatural act, nor a distant quantum trick. It is an act of remembrance. It is recalling who you truly are, the conscious power that shapes time, space, and all experiences. Realities are infinite, because states of consciousness are infinite. With each breath, you inhabit a specific universe, one that corresponds to your dominant feeling. The poor man who desires wealth still lives in the reality of lack, while the man who, even in silence, feels rich in essence, has already crossed the veil into another world. The body may remain in the same place, but the universe around it reorganizes in response to the new state. There is no journey to be made. There is only a shift in attention. Where your consciousness rests, there you live. And this is the great mystery that the ordinary person ignores. They believe they are trapped in a fixed destiny, when in fact, they change destiny with each sustained emotion, with each image accepted as true. The leap between realities is not an escape. It is a silent choice. And this choice is made not with effort, but with conviction. Therefore, before seeking any technique, pause and observe. Where is your attention now? In which inner reality are you residing at this instant? For the world, like an obedient mirror, merely reflects the house where your soul resides. When you understand that changing reality is changing your state, and that this state is determined by the feeling you sustain, then naturally, spontaneously, and inevitably, you will realize that you have always been the creator, and that by changing within, everything that exists outside bows in reverence to the new you. Everything already exists. This is one of the most difficult truths to accept, because man, entangled in time, believes that what he desires is not yet. He imagines he needs to create what he wants, that there is a path to travel between now and the future, that something needs to happen for him to achieve what he seeks. But the truth is that all possibilities already coexist in the vast field of consciousness. Creation is complete. There is nothing new to be done, only different states to be experienced. When you understand this, you realize that you are not the builder of the universe, but the explorer of an infinite realm that already is. You don't create gold, you just discover the mine. You don't create sound, you just tune into the frequency. You don't create love, you just vibrate in its presence. So it is with everything. Man lives surrounded by infinite worlds, versions of himself that already are. There is a you who triumphed, a you who failed, a you who found love, and another who lost it. All coexist in the now, awaiting the focus of your consciousness. The choice of what you call reality is not made by merit, luck, or chance, but by resonance. The state you feel as true is what manifests. Therefore, the secret is not in making it happen, but in accepting what already is in the invisible. Each time you say I am, you are choosing a line of reality. If you say, I am prosperous, and feel the truth of those words, you enter the frequency of abundance, and the visible world simply adjusts. The error of most is to seek outside what can only be found within. Man thinks, when I have, then I will be. But the universe responds in reverse. When you are, then you will have. Desire is not a sign of lack, but a calling. It points to the reality that already exists in potential. Yearning is the remembrance of what is already true at another level of consciousness. Therefore, when you desire something, it is not to create what is missing, but to move into the state where it is already real. Desire is the map that leads from one reality to another. Imagine a radio. All stations exist at the same time, but you only hear the one you're tuned into. The fact that you don't hear the others doesn't mean they don't exist. Similarly, when you are vibrating in fear, the reality of love is present, but invisible to you. The quantum leap happens the moment you shift your focus, when you withdraw your attention from what you fear and fix it, with quiet faith, on what you desire. The universe doesn't need to be convinced. It already is. The only task is to choose, sustain, and feel. Because man does not create reality, he selects it. And what he selects with feeling, the physical world is compelled to reflect. Feeling is the portal. It is the invisible bridge between the invisible and the visible, between the inner state and the outer reflection. Nothing can manifest in the physical world without first being felt as real in consciousness. Man tries incessantly to think positively, affirm, repeat phrases, but forgets that thought without feeling is like a seed cast onto marble. It doesn't take root. The universe doesn't respond to words. It responds to the emotional vibration that sustains them. Feeling is the secret language of God, and when you speak in that language, the entire world understands you. Many believe that feeling is merely reacting to what happens, but the true creator feels deliberately. He learns to inhabit the emotional state corresponding to what he desires, even if the external world still contradicts it. It is this silent act of feeling before seeing that reorders the world around him. Neville said, "Assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled." This means acting like the actor who, before the stage is set, already lives the role completely, until the audience, the world, believes it. You don't force the exterior to change. You change yourself until the exterior has no choice but to reflect that change. Reality is not solid, it is malleable and responds to your conviction. The man who feels fear does not attract problems because he thinks about them, but because he feels that danger is real. Similarly, the man who feels security and abundance, even amidst chaos, enters a vibrational field where only those experiences can exist. Feeling is like an invisible magnet. It pulls circumstances that correspond to its frequency. This is why purely mental attempts to change life fail. Feeling is the fuel that gives life to the mental image. Try closing your eyes and imagining the scene of your fulfilled desire. See it with the eyes of the heart. Feel yourself there, now. Not as an observer, but as one who lives it. Notice the sensations of the environment, the weight of a relaxed body, the gentle joy of something that is already yours. If you can maintain this state for a few moments, the invisible world will shift. Because, on the plane of consciousness, feeling is the creative act, and the universe is merely its echo. The secret is that you don't need to make it happen. You just need to maintain the feeling that it has already happened. When the emotion of completeness replaces the anxiety of waiting, the leap occurs, the bridge is crossed. You have ceased to be the seeker, and have become the one who already is. And in that silent instant, the impossible ceases to exist, because the entire world bends before the feeling sustained with faith. Therefore, when you sit in silence and visualize the scene of your fulfilled desire, know that you are touching eternity. In that instant, the Christ within you creates worlds. And when you open your eyes, the visible world will begin to reorganize in obedience to the image you sustained. This is true prayer, not words, but inner vision sustained with love and certainty. For conscious imagining is participating in the creative act of God, and what is imagined with faith is not a dream, it is destiny in gestation. Now you know. The world you so try to understand, change or control is merely the reflection of what you accept yourself to be. No power acts outside of you. Everything that exists through you. When you understand this, fear dissolves, doubt loses its grip, and effort becomes unnecessary. Because life is not a struggle, it is an obedient mirror. It responds faithfully to the feeling you sustain, to the vision you nurture in silence. You don't need to beg the universe, you just need to remember that you are the universe itself in human form, the Creator God experiencing the game of separation to rediscover himself. The leap between realities is not a physical leap, but a transition of consciousness. Each time you change what you feel to be true, you move into a new world, even if your eyes still see the old one. Everything you desire has already been created, and the path to it is not a road through time, but an alignment in the now. Reality changes when you change, and the external world has no choice but to mirror the new frequency of your being. This is the law, immutable and precise. So do not wait for signs, do not seek guarantees. Close your eyes, breathe, and assume now the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Live within it as one who has already arrived. Feel the weight of certainty, the calm of one who already possesses. Remain in that state long enough for the new to become more real than the old. And when you open your eyes, walk as one who knows, not as one who waits. Because the universe is a faithful servant of the dominant feeling, and the feeling you sustain is the decree that the world must obey. Everything already is. You are the creative center, the dreamer, and the dream. There is nothing to seek, only to remember. Remember, therefore, your true name, I am, and live accordingly. At every instant, choose the state you wish to embody. And when the world like a mirror shows you the reflection of that choice, smile in silence. For in that smile lies the confirmation of the most sublime mystery: man and God are one, and the power to create realities has always been and always will be within you. Close your eyes. Breathe deeply. Don't try to do anything. Just let the air in and out. The mind, in that instant, tries to interfere. It asks, am I doing it right? Will it work? How long will it take? And this is where almost all seekers go wrong. They turn silence into just another technique, when silence is precisely the abandonment of all technique. The state of the void is not something you achieve. It is something that has always been there, covered by the noise of your own attempt to get somewhere. The void is what remains when effort ceases. It is the space between one thought and another, the interval between two heartbeats. It is not a trance nor a mystical experience. It is the raw and naked perception of being, without history, without a name, without a destiny. You have already experienced it many times, in that instant when time seems to stop, when you look at the sky and for a second think of nothing, when you laugh genuinely and forget yourself, when you observe the sea and feel that everything simply is. This is the same state, except now you are accessing it consciously. To enter it, don't try to reach the void. Allow the world within you to quiet down for a few seconds. The first thing you will notice is the mind's voice trying to pull you back. It will remind you of problems, deadlines, people, of who you think you are. But observe, every time you look at a thought, it dissolves. It's like looking into darkness with a flashlight. It cannot resist the light of your attention. So instead of fighting the thought, just observe it, and it disappears. Another emerges, and it, too, dissipates. In a few moments, a calm begins to expand. It is not an emotion, it is the absence of agitation. It is consciousness returning home. Now, feel the body. Without trying to relax, just feel. The weight of your hands, the contact of your feet with the ground, the natural movement of your breath. Don't judge what you feel, just acknowledge it. Each time you become aware of the body without interfering, the mental field loses strength, and consciousness anchors itself in the present. And the present is the portal. At some point, you will realize that the you who observes is separate from everything that is observed. You are not the body. You are not the thought. You are not the memories nor the roles you play. You are that which observes all of this. And it is in that instant, when you realize you can see without reacting, that the void opens. It is a dense, living, formless silence. Nothing needs to happen, and yet everything is possible. Because in this space, there is no interference from the mind, and where the mind ceases, creative power awakens. Here, if you choose to change something, do not do it with words, but with feeling. Feel the new reality as if you are putting on an invisible garment. Don't try to believe, just allow. The universe responds to this state, not to desire. The state of the void is the point where the human I bows before the I am. And when the I am is felt, the external world has already begun to change, not because you asked, but because you stopped. Because finally you stopped interfering with what being itself wants to manifest through you. Remain there, even if for 30 seconds. Don't expect anything and just observe. It is enough. In this interval, the impossible is reordered, and when you return, the world will seem the same, but you will no longer be the same observer, and the observer is the creator. The first step to entering the state of the void is to cease internal dialogue. It seems simple, but it is the most challenging point, because the mind has been trained to speak without stopping, to comment, analyze, and react to everything. It cannot bear silence because silence reveals what it tries to hide, that it is not who you are. The mind is the servant who usurped the king's throne, and while it governs, your reality revolves around disordered thoughts, contradictory desires, and emotions that bind you to what you no longer wish to live. Ceasing internal dialogue is not silencing by force, it is disidentifying from it. It is realizing that thoughts continue to arise, but they no longer belong to you. They pass like clouds, and you remain like the sky. Begin by closing your eyes and observing. Don't try to control anything, just see. The mind will say, I need to concentrate. I'm not succeeding, I'm distracted. And you will observe all of this with the same calm with which you would watch the movement of leaves in the wind. The mind cannot resist silent observation. It needs your reaction to exist. It needs you to believe in it. When you stop reacting, it loses fuel. With each breath, you become vaster, more present, more silent. And this silence is not empty in the common sense. It is pure, conscious, awakened presence. In a few seconds, something subtle changes within you. The body begins to obey. The shoulders relax, the chest expands, the breath flows naturally. The energy that was previously trapped in scattered thoughts begins to withdraw. Attention returns to the now. It is at this point that the inner space opens, the space where being can manifest. The mind tries to return, it always tries, but you no longer chase after it. You let it go like someone who allows the tide to move. And in this simple act of not fighting, the internal dialogue ceases. There is no effort, no resistance. All that exists is consciousness witnessing movement and remaining still within. It is a living silence, as if time has stopped. And in that instant, you perceive something profound. Silence is not something you create. It has always been there. You merely removed the noise that covered it. This is the beginning of the true void. When the mind falls silent, even for a few seconds, the entire world realigns. Because you stopped vibrating from confusion and began to vibrate from being. At this point, Your vibration is pure, neutral, without fear, without desire. And it is this neutrality that opens the way for the new. Nothing needs to be said, affirmed, or imagined. Creation happens in silence, and you perceive, with almost divine clarity, that the power to manifest is not in thinking harder, but in stopping thinking, and feeling what you always were before any thought, pure creative consciousness. The second step is to lose interest in everything that is external. This sounds strange to the mind, because it believes the external world is the field where things happen. But the secret is exactly the opposite. The world is not the cause, it is the effect. Every detail you see, every person, every situation, is merely a reflection of the state you are holding within yourself. Therefore, as long as your attention is caught by appearances, you will continue to feed the same reflection. The void begins when you stop reacting to the mirror. For this, observe yourself now. How much energy do you waste trying to solve, justify, control what surrounds you? How many times do you feel small because something out there seems bigger than you? It is an illusion. Everything that exists outside is a dream within consciousness, and you are the dreamer. When you understand this, something changes. You stop being the prisoner of the scene and become the author. And the author does not need to fight the script. He rewrites it from within. So close your eyes for a moment and bring to mind what concerns you most. It could be a debt, an illness, a person, a fear. Feel the weight that this image holds within you. Now, in silence, say, "This does not define me. I am prior to this." Repeat without haste, not as an affirmation to convince yourself, but as an assertion of authority. You are not the effect. You are the cause. You existed before this situation arose, and you will continue to exist after it disappears. Feel this truth. Gradually, the power you gave to circumstances begins to dissolve. It is as if a chain is breaking. The external world loses importance, and your consciousness begins to breathe freely. Suddenly, the mind no longer has anything to feed on, because you stopped reacting. What once controlled you now has no more power, and in this space, something new begins to sprout. A feeling of lightness, clarity, neutrality. It is the harbinger of the void. Losing interest in what is external is not indifference. It is sovereignty. It is knowing that nothing can touch you without your vibrational permission. It is understanding that the scene is not the problem. It is merely a reflection of what you held yourself to be. When you release the reflection, the mirror changes. When you stop seeking solutions outside, power returns to where it always was, within. This detachment is pure freedom. You don't need to destroy the world, just stop reacting to it. And when you do, reality changes on its own, because there is no more resistance. The exterior is an obedient servant, and when the master awakens, the servant merely reflects his new will. To remain disinterested in the world is the same as remaining centered in being, and one who lives from being can change any reality, because they are no longer part of it. They are the consciousness that sustains it. The third step is to feel nothingness, and here many get confused because they seek in the void a grandiose experience, a mystical sensation, or an elevated emotion. But the true void is not feeling something. It is feeling absolute nothingness. It is the moment when you stop wanting to feel and simply are. When you reach this point, the ego enters despair because it does not know how to exist without references. It needs pain, pleasure, objectives, memories. In the void, none of this exists, and that is why it tries to pull you back to the known. But if you remain, something greater begins to emerge. Sit in silence. Breathe naturally. Don't try to imagine anything. Don't try to visualize light. Don't try to create any sensation. Allow yourself to be in the midst of everything, without needing to define what you are. It is uncomfortable at first because you are accustomed to filling every space with thoughts, but continue. Observe the discomfort without resisting. It is just the mind trying to keep itself alive. Gradually, you will notice that nothingness is not empty. It is a subtle, dense presence that encompasses everything. This nothingness is the backdrop of all existence. It is consciousness before form. And it is in it that manifestation happens, not in the whirlwind of emotions or mental efforts. When you feel nothingness, you dissolve the I that wants, and leave only the I am. And the I am is pure creative power, the essence before any choice. It is the field where all possibilities already exist, waiting only to be recognized. Allow yourself not to know, not to control, not to decide. Stay there, between one thought and another, between one breath and another. Realize that even when nothing happens, you remain present. You are the space where everything appears and disappears. This recognition is the beginning of true creation. The ego will try to return with its worries, and that is natural. It will say, "You need to act. This is a waste of time. You are escaping reality." But observe the trick. It is the mind itself afraid of disappearing. And it is right, because in this state it loses control. And that is exactly what liberates. When you remain in nothingness, even for a few seconds, the universe begins to reorganize around this neutrality. Because nothingness is the point of balance, and everything outside it tends to align with it. You don't need to ask, nor imagine the outcome. Just remain in this silence. It is here that the impossible bows. Because where there is no resistance, reality molds itself with fluidity. Nothingness is the womb of creation, the point where the old dissolves and the new is born effortlessly. And when you realize that nothingness is in fact the substance of everything, you understand that absence is merely the initial form of presence. In that instant, you are no longer meditating. You are silence itself, the very power that creates and sustains the universe. The fourth step is to recognize yourself as pure presence. After silence settles and nothingness is felt, what remains is a living consciousness, without a name, without form, without history. It is here that you discover who you truly are. Not the body, not the mind, not the past, but life itself, observing all of this happen. This perception is simple, yet it transforms everything. When you recognize that you are the witnessing presence, and not that which is witnessed, suffering dissolves because you realize that nothing can touch what you truly are. Remain still for an instant and notice. There is something within you that never changes. The body changes, emotions change, thoughts come and go, but something observes all of this with the same serenity. This is your real identity. It is the I am before any compliment. Not I am someone, I am good, I am rich, just I am. This is the most powerful declaration in the universe because it is consciousness recognizing itself as the source of everything. When you say I am, without adding anything, you return to the state of origin, to the point where everything is possible because nothing has been defined yet. Feel this I am, not as a word, but as a living presence within your chest. You don't need to believe in anything, just recognize that you are here, now, without past, without future. Just this instant. This instant is eternity disguised as now. By remaining conscious of this I am, something changes profoundly. The external world loses the power to affect you because you stop reacting to it. Everything that once seemed large, bills, fears, desires, becomes small before the vastness of your own presence. It is not arrogance, it is truth. What you are is greater than all that exists, because all that exists is born within your consciousness. And it is here that the power to manifest becomes real. When you think I am, you are touching the origin of creation. Everything you add to that, health, freedom, prosperity, inevitably becomes form. But the secret is not to ask, but to assume. Don't say, I want to be free. Feel in the silence. I am free. Don't affirm with effort. Inhabit the feeling for an instant, as if it were already real, because in fact it already is. This is the state of pure presence, the place where there is no seeking, only recognition. When you inhabit the I am, you don't need to fight to change the world. The world changes to align with you. And at this point, you understand the great truth. Manifesting is not creating something new, it is simply allowing the invisible that you already are to become visible. Presence is the power, and you are this eternal presence that, for an instant, chose to dream. The fifth step is to remain without expectation. This is the point where many get lost, because they want to transform silence into a result. They enter the void and immediately ask, when will it happen? Did it work? How will I know if I manifested? But all expectation is a disguise for fear. It says in silence, it hasn't happened yet. And when consciousness affirms not yet, the universe responds with the same echo. To remain is to trust. It is to know that the instant the state was assumed, the change already began, even if it has not yet become visible. When you leave the void, the world may seem the same, but it is not. The invisible gears of reality have already moved because your vibration has changed. The inner state is the invisible mold that defines time, space, and circumstances. What once seemed distant now begins to approach naturally, without effort, without struggle. Therefore, the final secret is not to do. It is not to interfere. Remain quiet within, even if the exterior still shows old signs. They are just echoes of a past vibration, shadows that dissipate. You don't need to observe, compare, or test the result. The anxious observer blocks the flow. Instead, live with lightness. Walk in the world as one who already is what they chose to be, not theatrically, but calmly, silently. There is a serene certainty in the heart of one who has assumed the state. They do not seek signs because they know that the world has no choice but to reflect what they are. This is true faith, not hope, but consciousness. When you perceive that the mind wants to regain control, simply return to the center and remember, everything already is. Each time you do this, you reaffirm your sovereignty. Time ceases to be an obstacle because you understand that there is no later. Manifestation is always now. The physical world is merely the delay of matter obeying the vibration of spirit. Remain even when nothing seems to change. Remain even when you doubt. Because to remain is to affirm the invisible over the visible, and the invisible always wins. Stillness is the final portal. One who crosses it no longer asks, they merely observe and allow. And in this state, things happen without noise, as if the entire universe bows in silence before your certainty. You don't need to force nor to desire. The void does everything, because the void is the very field of creation responding to your identity. When you remain without expectation, the power is complete. You no longer wait, you know. And when you know, the world obeys. This is how the invisible becomes flesh, and the impossible becomes inevitable. Now you know the way. The state of the void is not a destination, it is a return. A return to what you always were before getting lost in forms, in searches, and in fears. When you enter this space of living silence, the world loses its rigidity and returns to what it always was, a projection of your own state of consciousness. Everything that happens externally is merely the echo of what you have assumed within. And when you truly understand this, the need to control, ask, wait, or fight ceases to exist. Life becomes a natural extension of your being, flowing with perfection, effortlessly. Nothing external has power over one who has recognized their own center. You are not the body, nor the name, nor the memories. You are the presence that observes all of this happen. And when you remain conscious of this presence, reality bends. People change, doors open, the impossible dissolves. But the miracle is not in what happens externally. It is in your new way of seeing. You no longer see the world with the eyes of lack, but with the eyes of being. The state of the void is the point of pure creation, where the human I disappears and the I am takes command. It is there that the law responds, not because you force it, but because you have already become the decree itself. There is no separation between the creator and the creation. There is only consciousness manifesting itself at different levels of density. When you say, I am, the entire universe listens, because you are the original sound recognizing itself. So from now on, abandon the idea of seeking results. Instead, assume the state. Don't beg for change. Command in silence. Don't desire. Recognize. Don't ask. Affirm. And then be silent. Remain in the serene power of the void, where everything already is. Because one who masters silence masters the world, and one who inhabits the void touches the mind of God. Nothing is missing. Nothing needs to happen. Creation has finished, and you are merely awakening to what is already yours. Remain in peace, and the universe will obey. The instant nothing remains, everything begins.